taken from the album Drawings. We've just heard two tracks, The Passing, segueing into From Memory. They both come from an artist who goes under the moniker Great Earthquake. The new album Drawings is being launched this coming Saturday night at the Workers Club in Fitzroy. Great Earthquake is the moniker for one-man band Noah Simons. It's with pleasure that I welcome to Triple R Noah Simons. Great Earthquake, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Owen.
For me, and it might seem a strange thing having already had some independent CDs from you, but it seems like it's been a long time coming, this formal debut release. How did you go about choosing the material for this album, having released independent CDs previously?
Well, I had the opportunity to record with good friend Josh Back, who studies at RMIT doing sound art, and we had this idea to try and, I guess, record 5 songs that we, from previous albums, and then maybe a few new ones. And I guess I kind of, over the years, had sort of referenced or looked back on the different albums I'd recorded and found particular songs that stood out, or I actually thought about which songs you'd actually played from different albums, and actually people had commented on more so than others. So it was kind of a bit like that, I guess, yeah.
And so did you use them as a sort of a starting point and then rearrange and reformulate them, or are there parts of this album that have appeared in effect in their entirety previously?
Definitely the rearranged. I guess approaching this particular album, I was thinking a lot about how I was writing the songs, and thinking about how things could change over time. Often an easy formula to fall into with loop-based is that it will just continue over and over again throughout the track. So I thought about how can I sort of change the songs over time, and I guess thinking about adding different parts in throughout the track, and bass was actually a big part of the song's structure, adding to that, and thinking about changing those over time.
For me, I get the impression that you work fairly quickly. Is that actually the case?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, you did say that this album seems like it did take a while, and it did, because recording with someone else, and we had to kind of work out the best way to record Great Earthquake, and that in itself took a fair while. And then when all the other mixing and mastering comes into play, and the artwork and everything else, it can be quite a long process. But
well, it certainly changed the sound of Great Earthquake. I had previously described some of your material as having a lo-fi aesthetic. This clearly has a much higher fidelity aesthetic. Tell me, because you work so much with loops and you basically do everything yourself, what was the process once you got into the studio for creating these works? Did you do a lot of it live with loops and multiple instrumentation, or did you do each instrument as an individual take?
Each instrument is an individual take, basically. There was elements of looping where Josh, in his program, would take a 4-bar section, and then if it was a good take, then he would, if it was just going to be the same for a while, he'd just let that loop. Or so there were different instruments which we would say, so drums would go the whole way through as one take, but then there were some that we could just loop if they were just repeating themselves.
And is the challenge when you are working in a layering environment, in a multi-track, in a digital environment, is the challenge to maintain that sense that it still sounds organic, which I must say this album very much does?
Definitely, yeah. I was very conscious of trying to keep it that way, and also to be able to perform the songs in quite a similar way. Obviously, there are exceptions where you just can't, but yeah, basically that was definitely a main priority.
Well, now that you have committed to this album and it has wider distribution through Sensory Projects, is that now an additional challenge to be able to go out and realise some of these arrangements now in the live setting, and how will you meet that challenge?
I guess I've been thinking about that since recording, actually, which was, we started at the start of 2009. And I guess I've been thinking very much about how songs work live, and basically thinking of every possible scenario that my loop pedal, what sort of ways I can use it, and it's quite a simple device in some ways, but I've kind of, I guess, figured out a whole lot of tricks, you could say, that seem like I might have a variety of pedals, but basically it's a pedal, and now I've actually added in a little mixer which allows me to pick up more of the drums. And often live, one of the things that might lack would be I would lay down a live loop and then it will kind of cut down to a lower kind of, it will repeat a bit lower, but now it's a bit bigger sounding through the mixer. But I'm still, working on it and trying to, get it better, I guess.
There is a strong rhythmic sensibility through all of the releases thus far from Great Earthquake. Is drum kit your primary instrument as you see it?
Definitely, yeah.
And so what are some of the other instruments on the album that we might not recognise? We certainly recognise accordion in a lot of the tracks from Great Earthquake. What other things are on there?
Obviously guitar, bass guitar and glockenspiel. The addition of percussion actually was something that we did this album, which I when I listen to a record, I don't always notice percussion, but when we added that in, I really think that it just different sections were intensified by a tambourine or a little shaker or something, just sort of subtle.
Well, you've also, a couple of previous releases have been entitled Rhythms in Nature and Patterns in Nature. Is the natural environment where you find the greatest inspiration?
In some ways, it's because I live in the Mount Dandenongs. I guess I feel very much at peace there, and as to be creative, it's very, you sort of feel like you're allowed to be, and there's not much distraction. And I guess that kind of atmosphere and being there helps in that sense to be able to create. But in terms of looking at nature and making music to reflect that, I don't necessarily think about that. But it's more just being in that environment, I think, is very helpful.
So then do you feel when you inevitably have to go into a studio, in this case a lot of it at RMIT, right in the heart of Melbourne CBD, or you perform live, which again is mostly inside and very much inside the constructed environment, do you feel that imposes itself on your music at all?
Not too much. Funnily enough, 3 of the tracks on the album were recorded at my house. We did most of it at RMIT, and then we'd actually started the album that was going to be next, and then it turned from EP to album, and so there's a bit of a mixture. It doesn't bother me too much, I guess, playing in the city, and I've spent a lot of time studying in there and meeting with friends, and so I don't mind that kind of coming in here at all. It's fine. Well,
what can people expect within the environs of the Workers Club on Saturday night?
Hopefully a nice show. Obviously, it's a launch. You always hope it to be special in some way. I'm excited about the supports, good friends, Milk Teddy and Love Connection, and also Maud, who sang on the album, will be performing with me, which is lovely. And I'm hoping a friendly atmosphere, and obviously the music to translate in a nice way. And that's the main hope, I guess. Yeah.
Well, for a lot of people, a CD launch is often almost a point of closure. You've gone through that whole process of writing, arranging, recording, mixing, mastering, releasing, and the launch is often closure.
Definitely.
Of course, the flip side of that is if, and I believe some other radio is picking up on Great Earthquake, it's not so much closure, because all of a sudden there will be an expectation from people who are new to Great Earthquake to hear these songs again and again and again. For you, do you feel that as much as this is a beautiful musical statement, that you are ready to move on and start working on the next one?
I've already started, actually. With Josh and I we've made 5 tracks to go on the next, working towards the next album, and we're both, quite motivated, and he's a lovely fella, and so he comes down to my place, and it's quite easy kind of process now that we've kind of nutted this album out, and so I guess I try not to think about that side of things too much, and just to keep working on new material and keep it evolving.
Well, they're all chapters in an ongoing book, and perhaps that chapter, or this chapter, will be fully realised this coming Saturday night at the Workers Club. We've been chatting with Noah Simons, aka Great Earthquake. The new album, released through Sensory Projects, is entitled Drawings. We're going out with a work entitled Wait, Think. And we won't talk about the punctuation of this track at all, because I know it's caused controversy for your graphic designers. Noah Simons, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks
for your time this afternoon. This is Great Earthquake. Wait, think.